Hello everyone, welcome back to ListenABLE.
And if you're listening to this, you might be like, damn, what a track that was.
That intro music.
Who would write a theme song that good? I just have no idea.
Well, if you're a very sharp listener to ListenABLE, at the very end of the podcast, we have thanked that person who created the song. But if you maybe tick off as soon as we say goodbye and leave us, then maybe you're unaware that the person who wrote, performed, created that song has a disability, and not only that, now has a new book. And not only that, is our next guest on ListenABLE. Let her introduce herself.
Hey, thanks for having me. My name's Eliza Hull. It's good to be here.
Now, Eliza, if we thought about getting you on when we launched, and you would have been more so just like a musician and talked about that, but since we've got to know each other, and we'll talk about that a bit more, like journo, big advocate, and written your own book, it's been a massive couple of years for you.
I know. I'm tired. It's huge, but it's all good. It's all good.
Yeah, it's kind of seems exactly that. Fortuitous that we didn't get you on at the very start, because you were one of our first ideas because it made sense, because the music that we loved, we listened to, we're like, this fits so perfectly. Let's get Eliza on. But yeah, we might have just had you back to promote the book, but it does seem like the perfect time. As we record this, the book has come out today or yesterday, but as a couple of days on, you can now, of course, get your book. But let's talk about one of the reasons that you're here. We've got this.
Yeah, it's out yesterday. I can't believe it. So many years' work, really. It started out as an audio series with the ABC, and at that moment, I really realised that it was timely, because the amount of just emails and correspondence that I was getting where people were saying about time, like, why has there not been any representation about disabled parents? But in the back of my mind, I always wanted it to be a book, and I'm so glad that it's out, and it really is due to my need for it. When I was pregnant 7 years ago, I just felt like there was just nobody out there that represented disabled parenting in an authentic way. Everything out there was like the parent's a hero, or they saw it as like the kind of deficit, that it was problematic that the disabled parent had a child, and it was a burden for that child. And so I just was really just alone in my decision to parent, and realised that it was time that I make that change in the world. So
before we get into it, what's in the book for people that don't know anything about it? So please explain, where your idea came from and what's in it.
There's 25 parents in there, and they identify in different ways. So there's parents that are deaf, parents that are blind, parents that are autistic, parents that have chronic illness, and I guess some people that don't even identify with the word disabled. But generally, the common tie is that really inside the home is just like any other home, but the actual problems lie in society. So when you go to the hospital, there's just obvious discrimination, and also just attitudes out in society.
It's one of the things that you speak about in the book is, and it's something I fear every single episode, is some people like to be disability first language, or they like to be person first language, and you do speak about that in the book.
Identity first. Or
person first, yeah. So you did end up calling it Stories by Disabled Parents, but once again, how long did it take and play on your mind just to come up with that?
I lost so much sleep. I just, seriously, it really, really rattled me. It affected me because I really wanted to accurately represent a large population of people. So I ended up just ringing as many people as I could, reached out to a load of disability advocates in Australia and overseas. In the end, I chose identity first language because it's about being proud. It's about saying that, yeah, we are disabled, and it's an identity in a community that I'm really proud of. And I guess I feel like we don't really need to remind people that we are people. A long time ago we did. There was that, back in the day, it was the disabled. It was very othering or special or handicapped. And so the human rights movement came about, and they were like fighting, well, no, we're people. We're people first. Now I see it as like we don't really need to remind people that we are people. And so it's about being proud.
Not only are you a musician, a mother, an author, an advocate, but we haven't even got to the fact that how do you identify yourself with your disability?
Yeah, so I have a condition called Charcot-Marie-Tooth, and I've had it since I was 5 years old. And what had happened was I just started falling over at school, and my parents at the time didn't know what was going on, and so they took me to many hospital appointments, which was really hard because it was just like people constantly talking about you and not to you. And as a young child, I was pretty confused what was going on. At the time, they diagnosed me with something that I was going to die from. So it was very scary. And then after like many appointments, they finally diagnosed me with Charcot-Marie-Tooth. And throughout my childhood, I was a wheelchair user many times during primary school, high school. And it's disability looks very different day to day. And I have visible parts of my disability, so I walk differently. I fall over. I find, I can't lift my legs up. I have to use my hands and arms to lift my legs up. I have pain, fatigue, cramping, but there's also invisible parts of my disability. And, that does change day to day. And it is degenerative, so it will progress and it'll get worse. But I don't know. I've come to really love my disability, and I'm just like, I wouldn't want it to be any other way, because without it, this book wouldn't exist. I feel like it actually, influences my music. I sing differently because of my disability. I play keys differently because I have muscle loss in my hands. So it influences everything I do and my parenting as well. And I just couldn't imagine not being disabled.
I've only known you later in life, where you are a proud woman with a disability. How was that journey for you? Was there times when you were younger that you struggled with it, or was it always something that was quite easy for you?
Oh, there's been so many times where I've struggled with it. I think as a musician, I hid it. So anytime I'd meet record labels or managers, I would make sure I'm sitting down and hide the fact that I walk differently.
I'd heard your music before I knew you were disabled.
Ah, there you go.
Yep, legit. I didn't, because we were obviously I booked you to play Ability Fest, and I was like, I didn't even know she had a disability. Like, I thought I would know that. So that was interesting, wasn't it?
There you go. And it was because I just didn't talk about it. I hid it. I got my bandmates to lift me on the stage, but I made sure the curtain was pulled because I can't get up on the stage.
Is that because of the unconscious bias you felt like you might have, or because your own personal, or both?
It's just to do with lack of representation. Like, how many musicians do we see with disability? How many disabled people do we see on TV? I didn't feel represented, and it just made me think that I should hide it. And I remember being in high school, I was a wheelchair user for a large amount of time, and I just so badly wanted to fit in. And so I decided at that moment that when my parents went away, I would have a party without them knowing.
Nice.
Next minute, here I am, and the party's out of control, and an axe man comes to our house and smashes all our front windows of our house. It was just the most random.
Wait, just a random. What's an axe man?
Man with an axe?
Is that something that happens in the country? An axe man?
Well,
that scares the shit. I'm scared of axe man.
I was living in Wodonga.
Okay,
so
I was gonna say
because you were being noisy, you just smashed your windows.
There was a large amount of kids, young kids having a large time.
You said it so nonchalantly.
Yeah,
next
man
minute,
with
an axe.
An axe man just starts smashing the windows. Sorry, take that back.
My parents got called because the police came. The police chased this man. They didn't find him. But, it was just this random guy that came to the house. But I guess I'm telling the story because at that moment I was so scared, and I was there sitting in, my wheelchair and just thinking far out, like, why did I have this party? I had this party because I didn't fit in. No one wanted to hang out with me at the time. Whenever I was, sitting on the oval at school, the guys would take my wheelchair and take it down the hill and, make fun of it. And there I was stranded on the oval without my wheelchair. And I guess, it just felt really terrible. Like, I just felt alone at that time and felt like I needed to have a party to be cool. Yeah. So I guess I get it. I hid it for so long.
Was music a good remedy for that to like help you on your journey to being proud of who you are, or was it more people in your life? Like, what was the big turning point or instigator?
It was just by chance that when I was 5, turning 6, when I started falling over and developed my disability, that I discovered singing. And it was by chance that a teacher yelled out and said, "Eliza, do you want to have a go at singing this song for the local of Stedford?" And I won.
What was the song?
Oh,
you remember?
It's
you
terrible.
I just you see it on your face. And you said, "Okay, come
It was
on."
a gut-wrenching reaction.
It's pretty embarrassing. It was Tie Me Kangaroo Down.
No, it wasn't.
Could have been worse.
Not
a lot worse, but
not
could have
a
been
lot
worse.
worse. But I'll take it. I was going to say sing it, but I was like, "Ooh, no,
No, we're not going
no,
there.
we're not going that
We
one."
need people to stick around. Yeah.
And it was so lucky. And I see number 5 as my lucky number because that's when I developed my disability and it's when I started singing. And singing was the way that I could escape at high school. I used to go and sit in the music room and just play piano and just express all that kind of emotion that I was feeling. It was seriously, my saviour.
Going into parenthood of, disabled parenting, I think needs to be the focus of this episode because we get so many messages from able-bodied parents with disabled children or, disabled parents who are unsure whether they, we've had Ashley Morton in the past as well, who was a paraplegic after a car accident when she was a child and she had kids from a wheelchair. So we've had stories before, but people really love this space. And I wondered if you would, we urge people to go get the book and I'm sure they will. We've got this, but could you read the first paragraph of your section of the book? Because I think it sets up something really important.
Yeah.
Also, the first words in the whole book are pretty good too.
That's Dylan's endorsement of the book.
I love it. Being a disabled parent is a rebellious act. Disabled people should have the same right to parent as anyone else. But often when we decide to start a family, we are met with judgment and discrimination. We are questioned rather than supported. We have to push up against the medical system, which is particularly problematic for disabled people. And we have to confront how ableist society's model of parenting is, even in the 21st century.
So I want to know what ableism as a parent looks like to you.
Ableism looks like the moment that I went to my neurologist and told him how excited I was because I was going to think about starting a family. And he'd been like my support person for ages. So I went to him for any advice and tips. And he looked at me very confused and said, "Are you sure? I don't think that's a good idea. I don't think that you can be a parent."
Why do you reckon he said that? You couldn't carry it, or you didn't think you could live up to being a good enough mum?
I think all of it. Because of my disability, I do fall over regularly. I fall over every day. And I think he thought that I wouldn't be able to do it, that holding a baby would be too hard. And I guess parenting is physical, but I think disabled people, we're creative. I have to constantly think, how am I going to get inside a building? I can't get upstairs. So I think, I have to look at ways to get around things. So we always have to be creative and flexible. So we're actually set up to be parents because parenting, you have to be
problem
all of those
solvers
things.
as well.
Yeah. I think all of these parents face ableism, face discrimination. The 2 deaf parents that are in this book, when they decided to have a child, they went into the hospital and they gave birth, and then that child had a hearing test, which is a general screening test that happens. They weren't given an interpreter throughout their whole hospital stay, so they couldn't understand what the nurses were saying. And then after the hearing screening test, the nurse was just overjoyed and excited and smiling, and she's went to shake their hands and congratulations, they're not like you, they can hear. And that's really hurtful. It's basically saying congratulations, they're not like you. And often, for instance, there were 2 parents that are blind. When they went to hospital, straight away the social workers called. Even though now they have a thriving, bubbly young child who's just incredible, but straight away it's nah, they can't do it. And for parents with intellectual disability, 60% of those parents have their child taken, without any supports.
Yeah, unless their family can support them, they're gone pretty much. Like almost 100% of that.
And that affects, your very close family as well, Dylan.
Yeah, for sure. So Chantel's sister Steph is intellectually disabled, and so is her partner Chip. And if they'd have a great family, obviously we'd always care if they had a child. But if they didn't have that support network, like if they met, people that live together or work together that have, non-physical disabilities that had a child like that, it would be gone, taken. Like I'm talking like, boom, say goodbye, give it a kiss.
Yeah, absolutely. And Heather Smith is in this book, and she had her child taken because she didn't have the family support. Then there's Jacqueline and Gary who have intellectual disability, and luckily because they had that family support, they were able to fight it in court. And the judge ended up saying, I am deeply sorry. You did not have to be here today. Child protection just, they are ableist.
It's going to be a very important book.
Being pregnant, obviously you fall over every day, as you said. You get a huge front, heavy new accessory. For someone with unsteady footing on a good day.
That's a funny way to put it. I like that.
I like it. I was like,
I was like,
the best
I'm same.
There you go.
I was like, what's he talking about?
How do you adjust to this? And were there any falls, and what places did you mind, if you don't mind telling us where that happened, and how did you feel? Physically is one thing, but I'm sure the emotional repercussions of that were bigger.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, I fell over when I was pregnant a lot, and probably the scariest time it happened on the road on a highway, because I lived at the time in Preston around Northcote area, and I was very heavily pregnant, fell over on the freeway, and I can't get up off the ground. Luckily, the cars stopped and everyone helped me. But that was an extremely traumatic experience. With my second child,
I was like, you went and did it again?
Yeah, then I did it again. The second child, the falls were not on the road, more in the house. And last night I launched the book in Castlemaine, and all those GPs were there that helped me through those times. So every time that I ever fell over, I would go and get the baby checked. But the baby's protected in amniotic fluid, and there was no risk.
Has there ever been times that you felt like a bad mum because of your disability?
It's a great question.
Thank you. That's why I've got podcast. I do one every 4 episodes. I have a great question. It's mostly Angus.
And can I tell you what he's done? He slightly wheels himself away from the table as like how proud he is. Like, as in like involuntary, he's signed out now.
Yeah. I love questions that I've never had before.
Yeah, because you get the same ones as often. So thank you very much.
Yeah, I think because of my disability, I can't lift up my children right now, and I've got a 1-year-old still. And that's really hard, especially when he just wants to be carried. He just wants that emotional support.
And they see another mum carrying their child.
Exactly.
And that's what I'm worried about as well.
Yeah.
I'll be like, I can't go to the beach with you. Like, your mate's going to the beach, but I can't. I'm worried about that. Thanks for being vulnerable, because it's the only, I don't get worried about much. Literally, I can barely wrangle my dog, let alone a child. Like, it's going to be hard.
You can do it though.
Yeah, I'll do it. I'll do it. Get back here. I can't wait for my kids, because they're going to be like me, and Chantel, and be like snarky as. They're going to like go to the top of the playground. I'm like, we're going. They're like, no. Cool.
Oh, just
what do I do? I'm going to read this book.
Are we going? Are we, Dad? Well, come get me.
Come get me. I'm like, I can't get you, you little shit.
Yeah. It is hard. It is hard. Yeah, those moments, they're pretty shit. I'm not going to lie. But then, like, I always flip it around and I always look at a positive and just think, like, I've made this house more diverse, and we speak about disability, and I have got children that are really kind and inclusive.
Isabel is your 6-year-old. She's obviously grown up around you with a disability, but what kind of, and I've got a 1-year-old as well, and, the world of her is learning. What can you teach me or other people listening with kids who at the moment are able-bodied? We don't know what the future holds for Indy, and we'll support her and be there for whatever journey life takes for her. But what have you learned for me that could help me in my education of her for disability? I
just think, like, speak about disability and have books, picture books and books about disability, and treat it like a positive. Use the word disability, disabled. I mean, my daughter's really proud. Like, when she first noticed the way I walk, she was like, "Mom, like, you're amazing. You walk like a penguin. It's awesome." And I do. I
love penguins.
Yeah, I love penguins. I was like, yes, this is awesome. But ultimately, she always says, like, I'm proud to have a disabled mum. When we were in the kindergarten line, a parent and a child were asking, like, the child was actually, "Why do you walk like that?" And the parent knows me. We've spoken about disability, but this parent said, she's been in a bad accident. And I just thought, okay, I'm not going to go into this right now with this parent and child.
Why did she do that?
Because people are afraid.
Yeah, it's just easier.
It's just easier.
But she knows. That's so strange.
People are afraid of the word. But then as we're walking in, like, my daughter was just like, "What? Like, you're disabled. Like, why are we not talking about this?"
That's so interesting as well, especially that she knew, because you do speak about that in the book. Do you think she thought she was saving you the pressure of saying that you're disabled as well?
Maybe.
Like, she walked away from that going, "One up, Eliza owes me one." You know what I mean?
She still would have walked off going, "Oh, I don't know what to do in that situation," because I haven't been exposed to it.
Right.
You know?
Could be either way though.
Yeah.
Could be. There's a classic example. Deborah Kenahan she has a chondroplasia, which means that she has dwarfism, and two examples in the book. One is when she went into a bank and the stranger was a mother and child, and the child said, "Why is she so small?" And the mother said, "Because she doesn't eat her vegetables."
Oh, yeah.
And if you don't eat your vegetables, you're going to end up like her.
Brutal.
And Deborah was like, "I do eat my vegetables.
I love broccoli."
I love broccoli.
Get
Get stuffed. And then another example was her and her daughter, because her daughter also has dwarfism. And they were out at the park, and a child and mother came up again. And the child said, "Why is she so small?" And then looked at her daughter and said, "Why is there so many of them?" And this parent said, "Well, because we're all different. Like, some of us are short, some of us are tall, some of us are wheelchair users, some of us walk differently. And, diversity is what makes this world beautiful." Deborah, do you mind if my son asks you a question about it? And the conversation unraveled, and in about 30 seconds, the child noticed that they had puppies and didn't care anymore. They were just like, "Oh my God, there's puppies." And I think that when you step in, when you're curious and kind, because kids are curious, it's okay. I think that if you tell your child, "Shh, don't look," and stigmatize it more, it can actually be problematic.
It is actually, Dylan, very early on in our podcast, one of the early episodes, Dylan, one of the things you said was like, if somebody, you saw a kid who walked past and said, "What's wrong with him?" And then the parents grabbed his arm and said, "Don't, pull them, quick, get him away."
Smacks them, yells at them.
And then the fear is then inbuilt in that kid to not ask or to be scared of someone in a wheelchair or whatever that disability is. And that is so true, because that's the experience.
Yeah, it deters them from being curious, which is the wrong way to go about it. Have you ever experienced your child getting bullied about the fact that their parent is disabled?
Not yet.
Are you ready for that?
Yeah, it'll happen.
Yeah, I know. That's what I mean.
Yeah.
It's happened to me. It's going to happen to both of us.
Yeah, because as I said, like during high school, even when I wasn't a wheelchair user, I had people walk behind me and mimic me and laughing. And so, of course, like when teenagers get to that age, it'll happen.
Do you reckon that'll hurt you, or you'll be ready for it and you'll be okay?
I think it'll hurt. Yeah, if I'm completely honest.
I'm trying to think if I'll get hurt.
I think I'll be both like hurt and be like,
I wouldn't be hurt
both.
Personally, but I'd be hurt for my child that they might be hurt. Does that make sense? I couldn't care less if they did that to me, but that makes sense. And then that would actually make me really sad, because I'd be like, my kid's sad for me. And it's like, no, don't be sad for me. I'm fine. But yeah, it'd be interesting to see how that goes. We'll get you back on when it happens, and we'll have another episode.
Yeah, it's Micheline Lee is a wheelchair user, and she's in this book, and she was really honest around the vulnerability of shame. And so she was taking her child to school, and then suddenly he was like, "I don't want you to walk me into school anymore."
Kid said that?
Yeah, like to his mum, because he was ashamed. And
wow, that's a ripper one to unpack.
Yeah. And
that's hard.
Micheline fell out of her wheelchair once, and her son just kind of watched on and didn't come and like say, "Are you okay, Mum?" And she just speaks so wonderfully about that shame and about the feeling of like, my child is embarrassed of me.
I'm just thinking about that. That if my kid said, you can wait around the corner, Dad, because you're in a wheelchair, that would hurt for sure. Okay, that would hurt for sure.
But then all of a sudden he goes, "That's not because you're in a wheelchair. It's because you're driving around in a Kia with your face on the side saying Australian of the Year,
Exactly
Dylan
right.
Alcott." You go,
And I'm
"G'day,
like-
kids.
and I'm like, do you know-
remember me from 2022?"
I'm like, do you know who your dad is? Do you know who your dad is?
Oh gosh.
No way, I would never do that.
There is one other stat. We talked about the 60% of intellectual disability that, we heard that crazy stat, which is still ongoing. That's current law in Australia. The other one that blew my mind, complete ignorance, and I've been in this space for 3+ years hearing constant stories weekly, is sterilisation. Can you please tell people about that? We've never, ever mentioned on this podcast, and not because we didn't.
Gnarly.
Yeah. So still today in Australia, young girls and women are being sterilised without their consent. Their choice to parent is taken from them, stolen without their consent. And
With intellectual disability?
not always.
Not always, yeah. It's like, it could be any, there's like spine bifida or whatever.
And
Any disability, yeah. I thought it was the same, but it's actually broader than you think.
And like there's other countries that are far ahead of us and have banned it. We're so behind. And it's generally done in a secretive way where parents basically to sign their children up to be sterilised without their consent.
Obviously the book is out. Go get yours, but we need to talk about the theme song because there is such a fascination for myself because I listen to it so often. Can you tell us about the song itself, what its original title is? Was there an inspiration behind it?
Oh, cool. I don't know the answer to this.
Yeah, the song was called Pause. It's an unreleased song.
Don't pause the podcast.
Yeah,
Play.
kind of funny, right? How ironic.
That's so funny.
Unreleased song. And so, never seen the light. Probably never will because it's landed here, which is really nice.
Not fishing for it, but do you, because I know you listen to the podcast sometimes, do you like hearing the song?
Yeah,
Is it
I
cool?
love hearing the song. Yeah,
We get a lot of compliments about it.
Got a massive kick, actually.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Was there an inspiration behind it? Because there's
Well, it's like pause. It's like a love song, really. Like I want this moment to just stay forever, kind of vibe. So I guess that's
look at
kind
Dylan's
of
holding my hand.
They're holding hands now because I love you, bro.
Thank you, man. I never want that moment to end.
I love you.
Yeah, well, there you go. It's
Pause.
quite fitting, right?
What about when you give up a song and then it gets sampled into something like that everyone knows and then you can't use it anymore? Was there any like, you bastards, I want it back or not?
Slightly, like when I was, when I've been making a playlist of the demos, I'm making a new record right now. I was like, oh, that could have been something.
Because it's good.
Yeah. Why you wanted to play in the music industry?
Well, I just want to talk about representation in the music industry because I know it's something you're passionate about. If I'm thinking about where people with disability are the least represented, where compared to like able-bodied people are everywhere, it's like sport, obviously it can be better, but it's already been done. But film and music. Like if you ask me right now, I always say this, there's never any artist with a disability. Everyone goes, yeah, Stevie Wonder. I go, okay, there's Stevie
Ray
Wonder.
Charles.
Yeah, you know what I mean? But it's always, but think about it. Think about all the artists that you know. We always consume music all day, every day. And maybe they do have a disability, but a lot of people don't disclose because of a fear of unconscious bias, discrimination. But more importantly, it's just hard to get a gig sometimes. What's been your experience in there?
I remember being a teenager and watching the Arias. It was when Killing Heidi won that
Oh,
year.
we are on the track.
That weird.
So good.
And just watching Ella Hooper and Jessie get the award, and they literally had to go down like one load of stairs, up another load of stairs, and down load of stairs. And I remember just sitting there and saying, okay, well, that's not possible for me. I can't get upstairs. I can't get the award. And it actually is like that, the messaging that you tell yourself of not possible for me. And that really feeds into a lot of your choices. So I think it just was that kind of thing of like, how do I even get on the stage? And as I said, like, there were many times where I hit it. I have to get my bandmates to lift me up on the stage. For many wheelchair users, they just actually don't even choose it as a career. And so we're losing all this incredible talent because there's just no access.
I've got, before we get into the bowl of uncomfortable, I'd like to read my favourite sentence of your story from the book. We've got this. If you don't mind.
What's a sentence?
I'm going to read you my favourite sentence of your story because I think for parents or future parents with disabilities, powerful stuff. People may judge me for choosing to parent, but who better to make this decision than someone who's lived with my disability for decades? I'm proud of who I am, and I wouldn't change a thing about me. I want to instill the same pride in my children. That really spoke to me as well. I think that's, a beautiful closing words in the last little bit of your part of the book. How long did it take for you to get to that space?
Well, I have a 50% chance of passing on my disability.
We'll get to that in the bowl of uncomfortable.
Bowl of uncomfortable.
Don't you worry, the bowl of uncomfortable question we'll be covering.
No,
that.
just do it now. So it is. You knew there was a 50% chance of passing your disability on to your kids. How much did that play on your mind when deciding to become a parent? Because they go hand in hand.
Yeah, it hugely played on my mind because I know how much discrimination I've faced. Like I've, as I said, been laughed at, stared at. People come up to me constantly and pray for me on the street. And the world is disabling. Like there's just so many physical barriers. So yeah, like I struggled with that decision because I didn't want that for my kids.
Can you quantify what do you mean by hugely? Like years of thinking about it, like sleepless nights?
I think since I was pretty young, really thinking about it, just like wondering, will I, should I? But ultimately, like as I say in the book, I've had my disability since I was 5. I would not change my disability, and it's impacted my life in such a great way. So of course, I'm actually the person that can make that decision and make it with lived experience. And I'm so glad that I chose to step in and have kids.
We would never ask you a question, and it's your own business about that, but about your own children and the diagnosis or not, that's not our business. My question to you on top of that is then, are you getting the test to find out? Do you not care? Will it come naturally? How do you approach that?
To test for my disability is really invasive. So as a young person, I'm given electric shocks that really hurt. So they're extremely painful. I vividly remember going through those electric shocks and just...
That sucks.
Really, I was hurting and I was crying, and I've pretty much decided that I will just let it unravel naturally and not test them.
So you don't know yet, not showing signs or anything? Okay, cool.
I don't know yet, but that would, it's very possible that they either one of them have it or both of them have it.
There you go. I've got a bowl. I've got a bowl.
You got one as well.
This is a big bowl. This is a big bowl. This might not hit, you don't, this actually, Dylan can help you with the answer to this because it's not necessarily confined to just you.
Hang on, I didn't sign up for a bowl of uncomfortable. I've had my episode. It's bullshit.
I feel really uncomfortable asking this. Okay. If it makes the edit, welcome and good luck. Anonymous. I terminated my baby when I found out they had a disability, and I've never in the past 7 years not felt weighed down with the guilt. Do you think of me as a monster?
Do I think of you as a monster? No, I don't think that you're a monster. I think that I'm pro-choice. I think that we all have history and the ability to choose whatever we choose to do with our bodies. I don't think I could say that forced sterilisation is wrong and then tell somebody that they've done the wrong thing with their body. But I guess I would just say that in the future, watch more disability stories, listen to disability perspectives, and realise that disability is what makes this world a beautiful place.
So my answer is I'm like you pro-choice, but I am extremely pro having the disabled child because I promise you it's not as hard as you think and you're going to love them no matter what their disability is.
That's
bar
right.
None. Like I've never met someone with a disabled child who's like, that's shit house, let's get rid of them.
Exactly.
Like once
when they host parties and Axemen come.
True actually.
There's moments.
Or when they're me. It's an interesting kettle of fish because they can figure out more disabilities earlier now, so more people are getting choice. But the way to counteract that, which is what we both just said, is have greater representation everywhere where you're like, oh my God, it's actually not that bad.
Exactly.
That's how you change perceptions. Because if you think what it is, what your parents would have thought, potentially back in the day, that's harder because they had a different perception of what disability is.
Exactly.
That's what it is.
We should point out, of course, you can get the book. We've got this at all good bookstores. The link is actually in our bio as well. So if you're listening to this, just click below in the show notes and we'll get the link. But we are giving away a copy on our Instagram right now if you're listening to this.
Signed copy.
Signed copy?
You
Done.
better be.
We'll get a pen.
I've got my signed copy waiting.